All right, what is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Very Cold Lasagna, the podcast that is a safe and open listening platform for casual, cold, and even the dumbest takes on the world of WWE, AEW, the NFL, and the wide world of pro wrestling and sports in general. I'm your host, DylanLasagna. Welcome to today's episode number, yes, it is that episode, 69. 69. Yes, we're going to get into that special position here on this show. No, we're not. We're actually not going to do that. But it is episode number 69 of this freezing cold podcast that houses the Very Cold Lasagna with a spicy flavor to it. And I guess for the occasion, if you're watching this on YouTube, I am wearing this winter hat, this parka of sorts that, Kyle Broflovsky from South Park likes to wear too. So, we like to get weird here on Very Cold Lasagna, but, not that kind of, weird in air quotes. But anyway, we got a good show for you all today. We're going to be talking 49ers in their week 13 matchup that they should have pretty much won. But for whatever reason, they didn't against the Seattle Seahawks and Russell Wilson. We're talking about the game, my winners and losers from that game, and my takeaways. And boy, there were some things to take away from that one. And when that's all said and done, we're going to be talking about their must-win game against Cincinnati and the Bengals in Week 14. All in today's recap show for the San Francisco 49ers in this week. So, man, this is an interesting time for San Francisco fans. They're trying, for whatever reason, trying to get into the postseason with Jimmy Garbage fail and Kyle Shanahan's run-first ball control approach that they've taken and won 3 straight games with. And it's kind of come to a head here in Week 13 against a very terrible Seahawks team that's kind of free-fallen to 3-8. So they were heading into this game with all the confidence in the world, with playoff aspirations for whatever reason, even though they should be focusing on Trey Lance at this point. But, they want to backdoor into the playoffs only to get smashed and win an MVP for Jimmy G on his way out by, either a Green Bay or a Tampa Bay. I don't know. I guess this is what people want to see. But either way, this was going to be another must-win game for the 49ers. And this is one that they should have easily handled against, a less than 100% Russell Wilson and an offense that has been out of sorts ever since he came back. And even when he came back, even before then, they were already out of sorts. And, you had a defense that was pretty bad itself to begin with. And, this is just a total Seahawks team that was just very bad on the surface. So, we're going to be talking about this game in very, very in-depth. Before we do, I just want to give the plugs to the social media first, because that's what we like to do here. Even on episode 69 of the podcast, we got to do it. We have to do it. Make sure you listen to the show however you can, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, and Google Podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button and turn on that notification bell. Hit that subscribe button. And if you hit that notification bell, you'll be notified of each and every video that comes out in relation to Very Cold Lasagna. And make sure you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, wherever you listen to your podcasts, however you can. And follow the show on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. So let's talk about this Week 13 matchup between the 49ers and the Seahawks. The Niners and the Hawks previously met in Week 4 in Santa Clara at Levi Stadium. Seattle beat San Francisco 28-21. In all honesty, that 28-21 box score is pretty much a lie of what happened. It was no close game to begin with because, the 49ers, they actually started off hot for much of the first quarter, actually much of the first half. But turnovers and Jimmy G getting hurt, Kyle Shanahan had to start Trey Lance in the second half because of that, and that allowed Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks to pretty much cook all over the 49ers for much of the game. And a lot of those turnovers came on the heels of one, Trenton Canyon, who I'm not going to bash on because a certain incident happened in this game, and I don't want to rag on him for too much. And then since that game in week 4, both teams have trended in up opposite directions. The Niners, since that game in week 4, had lost 4 straight games, before a winning streak of sorts that started in week 10 on Monday night against the Rams, and they most recently won in week 12 against Minnesota, to claim a head-to-head tiebreaker in the wild card race. And this winning streak of sorts was, like I said, backed on a run-first ball control approach that Kyle Shanahan instituted, that saw the Niners completely control the time of possession. In other words, controlling the clock. Meanwhile, for the Seahawks, just days after they beat the 49ers, they faced the Rams at home on Thursday night in a game that pretty much saw Russell Wilson get injured when his finger connected with Aaron Donald's helmet. And he had surgery on that finger, and he was out for 4 weeks. And the Hawks offense under Geno Smith, it won 1 game, but that was pretty much the only game he won, and that was against the very bad Jacksonville Jaguars team. So, other than that, the offense was pretty sputtery since then, and they only won 1 game in the last month. And even when Russell Wilson came back in Week 10 against the Packers, they did not look good at all. They did not look good against the Packers. They didn't look good at all against a Kyler Murray-less Cardinals team that, yes, the same one that they blew out against the 49ers. And they had some signs against Washington on the Monday night most recently, but they just couldn't get the job done. So they entered this Week 13 matchup at 3-8. They were on the verge of getting eliminated from playoff contention for the first time since 2017 under Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. So this is kind of an important game for both teams, especially for the Seahawks. They needed to desperately win to keep their very small chances of a playoff berth alive and well. Kind of like the 49ers, they wanted to backdoor into the playoffs just to keep Russell Wilson happy in Seattle and, to keep him not thinking about a trade. And for the 49ers, they had to keep pace in the playoff race for whatever damn reason and keep hold onto that 6th seed because, they were also watching the backs of Washington, who was right behind them. Washington was playing the Raiders that day, and eventually they did win that game on a last second field goal. So the Niners had some things to take care of themselves. And, they're also looking for revenge. They wanted to split the season series against the Seahawks on the road. So this was an important division game for both teams heading into this Week 13 matchup. And this was a very weird game, all around. You start things off in the first quarter in a pretty sad way. And I'm not trying to say that as a slight. It really sucked. Trent Canyon, one of the running backs and special teams players, the kick returner for the 49ers. I bashed on him in the previous Seahawks matchup. He suffered a head injury, and he actually had to be taken into an ambulance. And it's very rare that they had to use the ambulance on the field. And fortunately for the 49ers and for Cannon, the injury wasn't too serious. Kyle Shanahan said a couple days ago, post game, after the game, that it was a concussion, so nothing too serious, nothing too major of a head injury. So that is good news for him. In regards to the game, after a couple minutes after that, the Niners forced a 3-and-out on Russell Wilson and the offense. So there are some good signs. There's good signs. However, immediately after they forced that 3-and-out, the Niners let the Hawks get away scot-free with the long-ass fake punt return touchdown by Travis Homer, and they took an early 7-0 lead. So, a big special teams oof by the 49ers very early, and it was kind of a foretelling sign of what was to come from this team. Yeah, a Seahawks team that was playing of desperation, and a Niners team that was kind of sleeping on the wheel. They were kind of sleeping on the wheel in this one. Things got worse for the 49ers, especially when they had their first offensive possession of the game. Kyle Shanahan was just getting pissed off that, I can't run the ball. I can't establish the ball. Elijah Mitchell's not doing shit. because Elijah Mitchell was getting stuffed. He was running into wall after wall on first and second down, and Jimmy Garbage fail couldn't find anyone on third down, and he was throwing it too low, either too low or too high on third down. And after that, after they had the punt for the first time, that's when things got really weird with the rest of this first half. DJ Jones got a fumble that was recovered by Emmanuel Mosley, and that set up Jimmy G nicely for a lob to George Kittle to tie things up at 7 apiece immediately after that fumble. So that was good stuff there. And then, however, even though the 49ers forced a 3-and-out on the Hawks again, Jimmy Garbage fail threw a Christmas gift, an early Christmas gift to Bobby Wagner. Yes, he threw a direct interception. He threw a pass directly to Bobby Wagner. Like, how dumb do you have to be? Like, there's no pressure in your face, and you just gift it to the defense. Yes, this is peak Jimmy Garbage fail we're seeing here. This is great. This is fantastic. And once again, the defense had to bail his ass out early again. Nick Bosa got a big ass sack on Russell Wilson. He also strip sacked him too. The Seahawks did recover it though, but it was like a very long second and never gonna happen. And the Seahawks did get it to field goal range, but they missed it wide to the left or wide to the right, I believe. And so it was good. Like, it was good that they couldn't capitalize on the 49ers fuck ups. And Jimmy G, they were back on offense, and he continued to go as Kittle early and often, and they got the ground running. Kittle got a good 28-yard catch from Jimmy G, and that catch set the Niners up into too deep Seahawks red zone territory. They got him to the goal line, and Elijah Mitchell finally punched through the Seahawks wall for a touchdown to put them up 14-7. So this is good things happening, at least some decent things happening. And the Niners defense, the defensive line continued to put heat on Wilson. They got another sack and another 3-and-out. So after some fake trickery by the Seahawks, the Niners finally got their shit together, at least on decently. And maybe this is a sign. Maybe this was a sign that they've adjusted. They're putting their shit together. They're getting their shit together on both ends of the ball. So they get a 14-7 lead that's extended into the second quarter with Robbie Gould taking a field goal to make it 17-7. However, unfortunately, this is when the Hawks, they get to start smelling what the Rock was cooking. And once Emmanuel Mosley had to leave the game due to an ankle injury and never came back, the Hawks began to pick on rookie corner Demondre Lenoir. And I think this was Lenoir's first meaningful game action since I think week 7 or week 8, I believe. I don't know, but yeah, you could tell that he was very, very very rusty. It's clear indication that when you don't have enough action on the field, your play significantly dips, especially as a rookie. Like, you need as much playing time as possible. So Lenoir kept getting picked on by Seattle. He gave up a big 33-yard catch to DK Metcalf, and that catch also saw Jaquazi Tart go down, momentarily leave the game, and Lenoir was also taken to jail for pass interference. Yes, he was taken to officiating jail due to committing pass interference on Freddie Swain. And the Hawks cut the lead to 3 as new running back. Yes, new Seahawks running back, Adrian Peterson. Yes, the same Adrian Peterson that played 3 games for the Tennessee Titans and did nothing for them. And Adrian Peterson just casually waltzed into the end zone to make it 17-14 and midway through the second quarter. But the 49ers answered right back. Jimmy G did a short pass to George Kittle, but George Kittle turned it to a big touchdown run to put them back up 23-14. But sadly for the 49ers, their defense sold out big time in a very shitty 2-minute drill by the Seahawks offense to end the half. This defensive drive by the 49ers was very bad. Aside from the secondary being terrible as usual, the defense was committing like awful penalties. I mean, Arden Key to kick things off by stupidly charging headfirst at Russell Wilson after he simply checked it down to Travis Homer, and he was taken to jail for roughing the passer. And when the Seahawks were in the red zone, some dude named Charles Omenihu was also arrested for committing a penalty of roughing the passer on Russell Wilson. But this one was more stupid. Like, I get the one on Arden Key because, well, the ball was already out of Russell Wilson's hands. But this one, like, I don't understand. Like, what was he supposed to do? What was he supposed to do when Russell Wilson was just trying to get out of that ball, and Charles Omenihu was gonna try to go up to the quarterback and, you know, like try to bear hug him down, but he can't control his momentum, and the ref was like, "Oh, flag." And I get it, you want to protect your quarterback, but why not have, like, what are we supposed to do? Like play tag? Like play flag football? Like, oh, let's put flags around them, and oh, you can only sack them by ripping off their flags. Is it what the NFL is gonna do? Really? Like, is this really how we're gonna eliminate, putting your body weight onto a quarterback? Really? So anyway, some random dude named D. Eskridge gets a touchdown from Russ. It becomes 23-21 at halftime, and it was a very wacky start to this game. Turnovers, extra large sacks being allowed in this one, and there were promising signs that the 49ers could control this game. Jimmy G found George Kittle often, and the Seahawks couldn't stop him. It was obvious that George Kittle was going to be a big factor in this one because Deebo Samuel was out in this game, and for whatever reason, Jimmy G didn't want to go to Brandon Ayuk like as often, but I mean, it is what it is. George Kittle was the key guy in this offense, and the defensive line was harassing Russell Wilson for much of the half. However, there were also signs that this was going to slip away from the Niners, and it eventually did. Jimmy Garbage Fail was the typical garbage he was, with high, knee-busting passing to his receivers and misreading coverages, as well as giving an early Christmas gift to Bobby Wagner very early in the game. And the secondary eventually, caved. They caved to a very bad Seahawks offense. They made Russell Wilson look like God. Again. Yes, again. When he's been bad for much of the season. And for whatever reason, they couldn't even stop their no-named receivers behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Like, how? So, even though there were things to clean up on both sides of the ball, the ugly portions, I think they were rearing its ugly head coming in the second half. And boy, did that happen. Things continued to look really great for the 49ers. And as they got the second half kickoff, Travis Benjamin, he had to fill in for the returner, Trent Canyon. And he immediately fumbled the second half kickoff. And K'Wan Williams had to bail him out in a clutch interception, getting the ball out of Gerald Everett's hand, and picked that thing off in the end zone. But sadly, peak Jimmy Garbage Failed appeared, and he allowed himself to take a safety. Yes, Jimmy Garbage Fail allowed himself with open arms, like, okay, I'm in the end zone. Let me have it. Safety. 2 points. My God. I get it. Look, Tom Compton is a terrible offensive lineman. Like, I don't know why we still have him. But, Jimmy G has to find an open receiver. If you can't find the open receiver, get out of the pocket. Like, why is he still continually insist to stand in the pocket like a damn statue? Like, is he super glued to the ground? Like, why is he continually doing this to us? It's like he's continually limiting the offense, like by standing in the ground, like as if he's in quicksand. And this was the biggest indication of that. He just freely took the safety from Carlos Dunlap from the Seahawks. It's football 101. If you see the pressure in your face, get out of the pocket and try to find an open man. If you can't find an open man, like throw it away and don't take the safety. But instead, he just wants to take it, like giving more Christmas gifts. I mean, I guess Jimmy G is really in the season of giving. He really was in the season of giving in this one. So things got bad for worse for the 49ers. Arden Key knocks the sack on Russell Wilson. I don't know what. My phone went off mid-range because some random dude called me from Georgia. I don't want to play for the Falcons, those choking assholes. But anyway, so after Arden Key didn't ring the phone for Atlanta, he did notch a sack though, to force a punt out of field goal range for the on the Seahawks. Jimmy G gave another Christmas gift. Yes, the season of giving, the season of garbage fail continued for the 49ers as Jimmy G threw an interception directly to Quandre Diggs. Yes, this is peak garbage fails in this game as Jimmy Garoppolo threw another interception. This is peak garbage fail on display, folks, and yet people want him to lead the Niners into the playoffs. Great. Yeah, just great. So the Hawks turned that interception into pretty much the game-sealing touchdown. Tyler Lockett hauled in a pass from Russell Wilson. Josh Norman's dumbass, his washed ass, got burned as the Seahawks took the 30-23 lead, and things got worse for the 49ers again as Elijah Mitchell got knocked out of the game with the concussion. During the Niners' next possession, heading into the fourth quarter. The rest of the game pretty much saw the Niners play West Coast Bears football. Yes, West Coast Bears football showed up again for the 49ers as they couldn't get anything going until much late in the game when it was too little too late for the Niners. And the Hawks pretty much continued to beat Kyle Shanahan at his own game with burning the clock, running the ball down their throats. And by the time the Niners got the ball back, they tried to make a push towards the end zone. Jimmy G did play a little better with big dimes to George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. They finally got into towards the red zone, but throwing it to double coverage, and Jimmy G typically focusing on one dude it's typical garbage fail. The Niners would finally lose this game 30-23, and yeah, that was pretty much your game. That was your ball game. Despite all the crazy shenanigans that happened in the early portions of this game, the Niners actually had a chance to beat a very bad Seahawks team all fronts. But instead, a lot of things reared its ugly head in this one. The Seahawks were made like gods. Russell Wilson was once again made to look like a god. He looked as if he returned to form against a very bad not Seattle secondary, 49ers secondary. And he, like, with the teams he's gonna play in the coming weeks, he'll probably be made to look like a god again. The Texans, the Bears, the Lions. My God, yes, they're gonna make him look like God again. And it wasn't just the secondary making him look like God. Ugh. Jimmy Garbage fail. Yeah, he did some great charity work in this one to a very terrible Seattle defense too. And like I said, Kyle Shanahan failed to make proper adjustments when he continually lost at his own game of ball control, running the ball down their throats. But now they got to figure a lot of things out because the Niners gave up that 6th seed to Washington. Yes, the nameless Washington football team. And for all the delusional Niners fans out there that thinking playoffs? Now, the Niners are going to have to fight off a bunch of other bottom barrel teams that include, yes, even the Seahawks at 4-8. It's not out of the question in a very weak NFC this year. They're going to have to fight off a bunch of bottom of the barrel teams to keep their very, very insane playoff hopes alive. But, this loss made things a lot more difficult for the 49ers. This is a loss that didn't need to happen. And, the teams that they're going to face, they're not necessarily runaway wins at this point. The Bengals, the Falcons, not even the Falcons, even with their terrible offense, the Titans, and I guess the Texans. You can never fall into a trap with the Texans, I guess. So these games that are coming up, these next 5 games, aren't necessarily runaway wins as we speak. So, y'all really think that they're still a playoff team? You all really think you still want to think playoffs? Playoffs? Really? Playoffs? Please. So, there is some silver linings to this game. There are still some winners from this game, and obviously there were some losers in this one. George Kittle was one of the winners of this game. Debo or no Debo Samuel, whether they had him or not, I think George Kittle perhaps had his best game since week 14 of the 2019 season, where he just went balls to the walls against New Orleans. I guess even in the loss, he was always found wide open by Jimmy G. And whenever he got the ball, he got a lot of chunk plays on a very bad Seattle secondary. And that was captivated by a big half-field touchdown in the second quarter. He got a big throw from him, hauled in from Jimmy G. And I think he had to reach his full ceiling, especially when he gets a real quarterback. When Trey Lance finally starts, oh man, George Kittle's ready to be unleashed onto the NFL. Just wait when he gets a real quarterback. He looked good in this one. Linebacker Aziz Al-Shaair. Whether Fred Warner is in there or not, he continues to step up. He continues to prove that he's ready for a bigger role. And that included on Sunday. He had the most tackles on the team. He also forced a fumble on Gerald Everett that on a touchdown would have likely sealed the game. And this dude is going to be something, especially when all 3 of them are playing. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Al-Shaair. When all 3 of those guys are playing, that linebacking core, they could be something. They could be really something. The defensive line, I know the secondary was ass and the D-line couldn't do everything. They made some pretty good plays. They notched a couple of turnovers to the day. And it wasn't just Nick Bosa or Eric Armstead, their typical guys. Guys like Arden Key, Jordan Willis, and DJ Jones, they got in on the action too. That defensive line forced 2 of the 4 fumbles on the Seahawks, and they got 2 sacks onto Russell Wilson, and Nick Bosa got a big ass strip sack on him. So even in a loss, the defensive line made for some pretty good work on Seattle in this one. Now for the losers. Obviously, Jimmy Garbage fail. He gave the gift of giving to Seattle, and these were very blatant. How bad do you have to be when you're throwing wide open interceptions with no pressure in your face? This dude cost the Niners this game. I get it. The Seahawks pretty much had the ball for a larger portion than the Niners did in this game and beat them at their own game, but a lot of it had to do with Jimmy G giving them chances after chance. How bad do you have to be? And he was also, again, high throwing his passes again to the point where he could have busted open kneecaps again. And he continually misread defenses too. And all in all, you wonder why people don't want him to be the quarterback. And then the secondary. The secondary was just continually burnt to a crisp again, especially Demondre Lenore, which I can understand, which I could understand to a point where he hasn't seen much game action since week 6 or 7. No, week 7 or 8, and like he had to leave momentarily because he of a personal matter. But either way. The rest of the secondary was pretty much burnt to a crisp in this one. Josh Norman washed ass as usual, and they gave up a lot of big plays to DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, even the no-name receivers. And sadly, this is going to be a problem for the rest of the season, for the remaining 5 games that they have. Terrible stuff. My takeaways from this game. If the Niners can't play the run first, ball control, time possession way of playing, they're gonna get one-dimensional really quick. And that was on full display on Sunday. The running game failed to get going very early, and you even got small spurts from Elijah Mitchell, but those weren't enough to get things going for Kyle Shanahan. It forced his hand to have Jimmy G throw it more than usual, and that was a recipe for disaster. And his 2 turnovers, which were gifted to the defense, overshadowed George Kittle's big day, and those turnovers let Seattle claw back, take the lead, and gave them pretty much all the momentum in a game that they had no business being in. And this is a thing that other teams, even the Texans, I guess, can expose. So Shanahan, not having total ball control, is going to force his hand and force him to go to a QB he clearly doesn't trust. And I think this is something that I expressed a week ago, where where's a situation where their run first ball control offense could take a hit, could take a snag, and Kyle Shanahan is going to have to go to Jimmy G. And well, here we go. This is where we saw it. And it gets ugly really, really quick. Jimmy Garbage fail. And that secondary. Oh, remember how I mentioned last week too that this team was going to get hammered by a team like the Packers or the Bucks? Boy, my takeaway from that last week too is clearly validated here. So I think it's pretty simple. Jimmy G's check down ass and his high knee busting and pretty much his free will to give donations to the other team it's gonna get read like a book by Green Bay and Tampa. And that's if the Niners make the playoffs. And that's not even the worst of it. The secondary is just gonna get destroyed by the likes of Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. And let's face it, they already got a preview of that in week 3. But oh man, if they face Tom Brady and his lineage of weapons that include Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Leonard Fournette, Rob Gronkowski, and even the other guys like Cameron Brate and Tyler Johnson. Whew. Y'all ready for a beatdown? You all really want to see this Niners team get smoked in prime time and win an MVP that Mitch Trubisky still is trying to defend? Yeah. Are you ready for that? So, anyway, sadly though, even if this case in point comes to fruition, it's still likely to happen. They're sadly still going to be a 7 seed because, well, the other bottom barrel teams, they're just going to feast on each other. They're either going to feast on each other, or they either have hard schedules coming up, or they just absolutely suck. I know for one fact that, well, the entirety of the NFC East is just going to feast on each other for the rest of the season. Seattle, for as much as they're going to face the Texans, the Bears, the Lions, they still got to face the Rams and the Cardinals on the road, so they're pretty much done at that point. And even the entirety of the NFC South, they're going to face each other or Tom Brady for the rest of the season. So yeah, this is so great. Yeah, the Niners are gonna backdoor their way into the playoffs and get crushed on prime time and get an MVP if they're playing on Nickelodeon. This is great. But let me know how you feel about this Week 13 loss to Seattle, however you can. Okay, all right. So now let's take a look at their Week 14 matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. This is the one AFC game that they added for the season. Yes, this is the one inter-conference game to make it to add for that 17th game of sorts. It's finally here. So let's talk about it. 49ers versus the Bengals in Cincinnati, Week 14. So both teams, they're coming off really bad losses. 49ers, they're coming off a loss to the Seahawks in a game that they should have won in Seattle, 23-30. And their asses got swept in the season series again, proving once again that Russell Wilson still owns their asses even when the Seahawks themselves suck. Absolutely suck. So this is pretty much a self-inflicted and very, very terrible loss by San Francisco. Meanwhile, for the Bengals, they nearly came back in a Week 13 matchup against the LA Chargers in Justin Herbert, but unfortunately for them, some miscues and a finger injury by Joe Burrow ended up having them smoked by Herbert and the Chargers 41-22. And you can't really discount that as a blowout. But you gotta consider the circumstances that the Bengals were in with the Joe Burrow injury. So either way, this is a critical game for both teams to keep their playoffs alive, especially for the 49ers, because they're coming off honestly the worst of the loss of the two teams. So first, let's take a look at the Bengals season so far. The Bengals currently sit at 7-5. They hold the 6th seed in the AFC wildcard picture. They actually still have a chance to take over the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC North, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So the Bengals, they're in their second year with Joe Burrow. They're also have their first year 5th overall pick, Jamar Chase, and he's having a pretty good year so far. And I think this is their second or third year, second or third year with their head coach Zach Taylor. Either way, they had a hot start to their season, starting 3-2 on the heels of a breakout stretch by rookie Jamar Chase. But they also had a 3-game slump after that. That was culminated by a big blowout loss to the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore in Week 9. And during that chase, I guess I can't pun, but defenses managed to limit Jamar Chase and exposing a pretty still weak offensive line and getting after Joe Burrow. And heading into their bye week, there were things that they had to fix. They also had to get healthy. After the bye, they won 2 of their last 3 on the backs of their running back Joe Burrow, and they're getting solid play from their defense, especially the defensive line. But let's remember, they're playing a very beat up Raiders team, both physically and emotionally, and a washed up Big Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's face it, who, by the way, also got similarly beat in the manner that the Bengals beat them this past Thursday by the Vikings, regardless of the box score. However, the Bengals most recently, like I said, they lost to the Chargers in Week 13, 41-22. This was a game that saw them give up 3 touchdowns to Justin Herbert, and they gave up a fumble recovery touchdown that was committed by Joe Mixon. You also saw Joe Burrow suffer a finger injury in the second quarter that pretty much affected him for much of the game. The Bengals could have taken him out of the game, but I guess Burrow really wanted to play through that injury to see how bad it was going to be. So despite the loss, the Bengals are not completely out of it. I guess also because, the rest of the AFC is, just like the NFC, it's kind of so-so. It's kind of weak in its own right. They currently hold the 6th seed. I'm not sure who holds the 7th seed in the AFC. I think it's the Colts right now, but I'm not sure. But whoever's on the outside looking in, it's kind of like a dogfight of who wants the back door into the playoffs. But either way, for the Bengals, they have a bit of a tough stretch that began last week, and it's going to continue going forward. That includes the 49ers. For the Bengals, they're just trying to clinch a playoff spot for the first time since 2015, where they won the AFC North with Andy Dalton and, yes, Marvin Lewis. And we all remember that wild card game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was just weird. That was very weird. But, however, I think the Bengals want more than just a wild card spot. They notice, if you've noticed, and if they notice too, the Ravens have been free falling as of late, especially on offense. And they've also lost corner Marlon Humphrey for the season. And their defense continues to free fall too. So if the Ravens continue to free fall, and they have a tough schedule in their own right with the Packers and the Rams in their next 2 or 3 games, and they also have to face the Bengals and Steelers again. The Bengals, you can't count them out in the AFC North title race, and it's pretty much become a 2-way race at this point. The Browns and the Steelers are pretty much done. They're pretty much out of it. The Browns are too banged up. The Steelers just got waxed by the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday night, and Ben is likely going to retire after the season. But it's pretty much a 2-way race, and they have one more matchup in Week 16 between each other. So the Bengals still have a chance to reinsert themselves into AFC North title contention if the Ravens keep collapsing. But the Bengals still have their work cut out for them. Aside from the Niners this week and the Ravens in Week 16, they still have to face the Broncos, the Chiefs, and the Browns the rest of the way. So it's not exactly an easy stretch for this Bengals team that wants to inspire some confidence for Joe Burrow and company. Meanwhile, for the 49ers, they currently sit at 6-6. They recently had their 3-game winning streak snapped by the now 4-8 Seattle Seahawks in Week 13, 30-23, and they also were beat at their own game of ball control, ground game, time controlling, that kind of offense that Kyle Shanahan has been trying to institute in the last couple of weeks. They were beat at their own game by Pete Carroll and the Hawks in Week 13. The Seahawks defense pretty much clogged Elijah Mitchell for much of the game, and that forced Kyle Shanahan's hand to have Jimmy G throw it more. And, well, that went as well as you expect. He had some nice throws to George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. He was still pretty much Jimmy garbage fail for much of the game. High kneecapping throws and giving the Christmas cheer, the Christmas spirit to Bobby Wagner and Quandre Diggs of the Seahawks defense in the form of 2 interception gifts. Yes, 2 interception gifts. The Niners secondary was especially made very poor, but they also made the Seahawks offense look like gods. They made Russell Wilson look like he returned to form. They made him look like as if he recaptured the magic from the previous weeks before the finger injury in Week 5. The Niners are kind of coming in banged up into this matchup. They're not sure if they'll have Elijah Mitchell, who's in concussion protocol. They're likely not going to have Emmanuel Mosley with an ankle injury, but at least they're hoping to have Deebo Samuel and Fred Warner come back for this game after they were out for the Seattle game in Week 13. In regards to the playoff race, if you're really delusional, the Niners, they're 6-6. They're the 6th seed in the NFC playoff picture. Actually the 7th seed. Sorry, they were the 6th seed, but since they lost to the Seahawks, they gave that up to the nameless Washington football team. after they beat the Raiders that same week. So the Niners pretty much have to fight off a bunch of bottom barrel teams at this point, and hope that Washington gets feasted on by the rest of the NFC East. But in regards to the rest of the season, their schedule is not as daunting as the Bengals, but after losing to Seattle in a pretty much winnable game, the Niners pretty much have no more margin for error if they want to backdoor into the playoffs, only to get crushed in the first round by the Packers or the Bucs, and win the most valuable prize in all of football and all of sports entertainment, the Nickelodeon Most Valuable Player Award, that's currently held by one Mitchell Trubisky. Yes. But anyway, so the Niners, this is no easy stretch for them either. Even on paper, it says it is. They still got to face the Bengals, the Falcons, the Titans, the Texans, and the Rams. So never sleep on anyone in this league. So some keys to victory for both teams. For the Bengals, you got to get up front and pressure Jimmy G and turn him into Jimmy Garbage Fail. One way to do that is for defensive ends Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard. Whoever's lining up opposite the right guard, Tom Compton. Tom Compton is a very terrible right guard or right tackle, whatever he plays on the right side of the line. But the right side of the offensive line for the 49ers is very weak. And the Seahawks defense, for as terrible as they are, they exposed it big time on Sunday. They got to him pretty much all day, and they even attacked him and forced Jimmy G to take a wide open safety. So whether it's Hendrickson or Hubbard lining up opposite Compton, they can expose him for the total fraud that Tom Compton is and have a field day feasting on Jimmy G. You got to mix it up with Joe Mixon. However, it's unclear if he's going to play in this game because he's been battling with an illness. He hasn't practiced yet. So if Mixon's going to play, the Zach Taylor's going to have to call up some outside plays instead of just typically running it down the middle like the Niners like to do. So Zach Taylor's got to mix things up with Mixon, or if Mixon doesn't play, find ways to get Samaje Perine involved, and involved in various, not just the typical one-dimensional run it down their throats kind of way. You also got to find Jamar Chase. You got to find ways to get him involved again, because after a stellar first 5 weeks, he's been relatively quiet, because I guess defenses have had better reads on him. I think this is the week that Jamar Chase gets involved even more again, because this is a very bad 49ers secondary that he's going up against, and this is a smash spot for him to figure out how he's going to get involved. Zach Taylor, this is a good spot for him to attack this Niners defense. And then last but not least, you got to monitor Joe Burrow's finger injury, because one hit, even if it's small, minor, it could have lasting ramifications on the Bengals' playoff hopes. So even though he's going to play through this swollen finger, they're going to have to check on him every now and then just to see how he's doing in general, because you don't want to have that injury be severely aggravated to the point where it could cost the Bengals ample amounts of traction in their quest for the playoffs and even the NFC in the AFC North. Just ask Russell Wilson how that went. For the 49ers, the defensive line has to outduel the Bengals' weak offensive line. The big four, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Arden Key, DJ Jones. This is an offensive line that can pretty much beat on the ground. And in the last couple of weeks, the Bengals' offensive line still allows a few sacks here and there. So I think that the Niners' defensive line can get to them, get to Joe Burrow, and give him even less time to throw. And that's the key to shutting down this Bengals offense. Jimmy Garoppolo has to minimize his mistakes, plain and simple. He can't be doing the shit that he was doing in Week 13 against Seattle. He's got to stop standing in the pocket as if he's stuck to the ground like glue. And he's also got to stop misreading defenses that, I see I see George Kittle, but instead, my eyes are like, he actually saw a Bengals corner, and he openly gave them an interception. So for Jimmy G, he has to simply play mistake-free football, but he also has to be aggressive downfield. So anyway, Josh Norman in that secondary, especially Josh Norman, at this point, he's got to have a rechristening or a dive into the fountain of youth, because Joe Burrow is likely going to attack his side of the secondary. He knows that Josh Norman can easily get burnt due to him being a washed ass fuck. So at this point, I don't know. I don't know if this secondary can recover, cover these speedy receivers, especially Jamar Chase. If the ball control run first offense can't get going early, Kyle Shanahan, you gotta make adjustments very early if you know it's not working. This Bengals team now has a point of attack thanks to Seattle. They can stop the run, so the Niners offense will have to throw. They'll have to throw, and Shanahan, even if you don't trust Jimmy G, you won't have a choice. And you just can't stand pat with your game plan. So overall, it's going to be a desperate game by both teams. The Niners lost a game they should have won. The Bengals just got outplayed by an also inconsistent Chargers team. Both of these losses were kind of hits to their playoff hopes. And it'll continue to look like that if they keep losing more games. So now this is a must-win game for both teams to keep their standings in place in the playoff race. And Niners win here. They maintain their hold onto the last playoff spot for the Bengals. They get traction onto the AFC North if the Ravens continue to lose. But if you ask me who's going to win this game, I honestly go with the Bengals. Yes, this is a Niners recap episode, and yes, I'm picking the Bengals. I actually haven't given a prediction at all in any of my recap episodes for the 49ers. And, well, we're 14 weeks in, and here we go. Here's your first prediction of the season. I'm going with the Bengals against the 49ers in this one. Even though they got a weak offensive line and Joe Burrow's at less than 100%, they're playing much better. They have a much better and much healthier talent to team than the 49ers, who've been yet again beat up by injuries and a lot of questionable coaching, inconsistent QB play, very bad secondary has plagued them all season long. And I think, again, it'll rear its ugly head yet again. At least for the Niners, they get the benefit of the doubt that this game is not at 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock Eastern time anymore. It got flexed to 4:30 Eastern time, so they get a little bit more time to be adjusted to their own standards, I guess. But still, I think this is a game that the Bengals are gonna win through the air, and this second loss is gonna leave the Niners on the outside looking in because of the Vikings winning on Thursday night. Even if the Niners already won the head-to-head. And, we'll see what the Niners do from there the rest of the way. But I just see the Bengals winning this one. So those are my thoughts on the Week 13 action from Seattle. That Seattle game against the 49ers. A very winnable game that they should have won. And what I think is going to happen in Week 14 against the Bengals. In Week 14, this must-win game for the 49ers that I just don't think that they're going to win. But let me know what you're going to think is going to happen this Sunday against the Bengals, however you can, and any way you can. But that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I am your host, DylanLasagna. Thank you for tuning into this fine episode of the 49ers and my recap of them on this fine episode. Yes, episode number 69. Yes, we got in the virtual 69 position today. Anyway, make sure to listen to the show any way you can on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM. Follow the show on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. And as always, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of pro wrestling and sports. Very cold in the fridge. Still tasty. Like a hot, spicy pasta. Like Garfield. Yeah, like Garfield would say. Anyway, Until next time, peace out.